And they're telling you do not. They're telling you that all that's gone, that you're under a dictatorship.
The northern Dublin suburb of Coolock recently erupted into chaos on July 15th. What began as an anti-immigration protest quickly spiraled into full-blown violence. The trouble kicked off in the afternoon near the old Crown Paints warehouse on Malahide Road. A crowd of mostly young men gathered, their anger and numbers swelling as the day dragged on. By evening, things were out of control. Protesters set a Garda car on fire, trapped Dublin bus vehicles, and hurled rocks at the police. With around 200 officers on the ground, including the public order unit, the Garda struggled to regain control. But it was absolute mayhem. Petrol bombs were flying, vehicles set alight, and fire spread, destroying a mechanical digger in the process. Law enforcement had to break out pepper spray to get the crowd under control. By the end of the evening, 19 people had been arrested.
Well, I think that times were so good in Ireland that it was really a blip in the sort of nation's history. We're traditionally a very poor country, a nation of immigrants, and those times are coming back.
Even a couple of years ago, Ireland's property market was red hot, and it seemed as if the easy loans would never run out. But now many of the multi-million-dollar homes like this one built by developers stand empty, monuments to a boom gone bust.
But the violence in Coolock is just one chapter in a larger unfolding crisis. To understand the roots of Ireland's current migrant crisis, we need to rewind to the late 1990s and early 2000s, when the Celtic Tiger was in full roar. Ireland was riding an economic wave that transformed it from one of Europe's poorest countries into one of its wealthiest almost overnight. Jobs plentiful, wages rising, and Ireland became a magnet for immigrants seeking new opportunities. But that bubble burst in 2008 with the global financial crisis. The once booming housing market, inflated by years of speculative investment, collapsed, sending the economy into a tailspin and unemployment rates soaring. Despite this, many migrants stayed. As the economy slowly recovered, the housing market lagged behind due to strict planning laws and slow construction, leading to the severe shortage that we face today.
Now, Ireland, what is going on in Ireland with the migrant situation? The Taoiseach of Ireland has said that the government must do more to engage with people who have genuine questions over the provision in the context of increased migration. Basically, people are hacked off. They're hacked off that they're losing out on accommodation, that houses are not being built for the locals, jobs, all sorts of things, violent clashes, Dougie Beattie even. We're going to go to Dougie, who's been across this now for a couple of days.
Ireland's population has swollen due to the amount of immigration that have came in. And before they came in, there was no infrastructure for those immigrants that were arriving here. So we have seen tented cities in Dublin, along the canal. Most of the beautiful spots of Dublin have had immigrants sleeping in them, and the rubbish that goes with it.
But the problem here is, right, they want to put 500 men into a building it's not suitable for purpose. For starters, an asbestos roof in there. Asbestos is a very highly dangerous substance. Like. There's a place over here called the Leisureplex where the kids play. It's one of the only amenities in the whole area. You know what I mean? They want to put 500 migrants in there that, you know, you can't do it. There's nothing around here. There's been nothing around here for years.
The arrival of over 100,000 migrants since 2013 has only exacerbated Ireland's housing crisis. The nation's infrastructure simply hasn't kept pace, resulting in an estimated need for 35,000 homes as of 2023. The absence of adequate planning has led to overcrowded areas and visible neglect, with streets now littered and run down. Over 11,000 people are currently in emergency accommodation, including families and individuals battling homelessness. As the crisis worsens, public outrage is boiling over. Many are furious that while the government seems focused on accommodating migrants, it's failed to tackle the housing issues facing locals. This growing frustration has turned into a real sense of betrayal, as neighborhoods are left overrun and neglected.
You've lived in a tent here for a month.
Yeah.
And how's that been?
Well, you know, like for me it was better to stay here because no bombs, no military. I don't live here.
Okay.
I have accommodation for like 7 months or something, and now I have right to work. I received this labor market access. I start to work. Really very kind. It's not that city center that where Spire and all that junky people and all that. Here it was very quiet and like welcoming place.
The migrant crisis has been intensified by a massive influx of Ukrainian refugees. Over 255,000 have arrived since Russia's invasion. Many of these refugees are living in tents and temporary accommodations, adding even more strain to an already overstretched system and deepening the housing shortage. The surge in refugee numbers has fueled tensions, leading to more dramatic and violent protests. The far right has seized on the crisis, intensifying their rhetoric and blaming both the government and immigrants for the worsening conditions. Their influence is growing, and their demonstrations have become increasingly violent, further escalating the unrest.
An Irish citizen of 20 years standing waited outside a school. As children left school, he then proceeded to stab, unfortunately, 3 of them, and ultimately 5 people went to hospital. The attacker, one of the teachers, carers from the school, and 3 children, sadly.
How old were the children, Noel?
The children were approximately 5 to 6 years of age, and two of the victims are still presently in hospital in what is described to me as a serious but stable condition. It seemed to morph into something a little bit different. It seemed to spread online. It seemed to attract an element of people who want to commit antisocial behaviour. Looting took place. A lot of shops behind me, you can't quite see them, we're a little bit too far away, are boarded up and still closed today.
But this isn't just about a lack of housing. It's also about public safety. In November of 2023, tensions hit a new low when a stabbing involving a homeless Algerian man made headlines. The attack left 3 children, a woman, and a man injured, sending shockwaves through the community. Even though the man had lived in Ireland for 20 years, his status as an immigrant became a focal point for the outrage. The incident stoked fears and deepened the growing divide, with many questioning the safety and integration of those who, despite long-term residency, are still seen as outsiders. That very same day, riots broke out around the crime scene. Property was damaged, people and police were attacked, and the violence quickly spread to other parts of the city. The situation spiraled out of control, leaving everybody on edge. The fallout from the violence and public safety concerns has intensified scrutiny on Ireland's migration policies. As frustration grows, the EU Migration Pact is coming under fire.
What we're debating here today is whether Ireland should opt into fully and wholesale the EU Migration Pact, and Sinn Féin's position is crystal clear. We should not. It is not in Ireland's interest. Ireland and Europe have seen a significant increase in migration rates for a number of years. In 2019, the number of people applying for international protection in this state was less than 5,000. The number last year was over 13,000, nearly tripling it in the space of 4 years. By the end of last month, 107,000 PPS numbers have been issued to the Ukrainian beneficiaries of temporary protection. And how migration is managed, or indeed mismanaged, impacts almost every facet of our economy and our society. The provisions of our public services, our social cohesion, the demands on our housing system. And this year, the number of asylum applications is likely to be in the region of 25,000. That as a state, we would essentially give up on our ability to take key decisions to respond to this is the wrong call for Ireland.
Ireland is pushing back against the EU Migration Pact, with Pierce Doherty leading the charge. Doherty has slammed the agreement, arguing that it unfairly burdens Ireland amidst its current housing and public service crisis. He claims the pact forces Ireland to accept more migrants without providing adequate support, intensifying the country's already significant challenges. So, what's your take on all of this? Make sure you let me know in the comments section down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode.